Thank you. I hope everybody enjoyed our morning so far, but I think we're going to end the morning with a bang. For everybody, we're going to have a utility industry panel today. My name is Linda Bridwell. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, and we are fortunate today to have a nice diversity from the energy industry section. So I'll start over here. Marty Littrel is the President and CEO of Meade County RECC. Here to my left is Amy Spiller, the CEO of Duke, Kentucky. And on the end is Kimbra, the CEO of NiSource, Kentucky, or I guess Columbia Gas, Kentucky, is NiSource. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have, I'm going to sit down, we're going to have a few questions that I'm going to pose to the group and let each one of them answer. And then I hope that you all are prepared to have some questions, because we really have made sure we have time at the end, because I know each of you are wanting to know how you're going to pay for all this transition in energy. And these are the folks that you can ask on that. So with that, I know everybody's bios are on the site, so we'll just jump right in. And Marty, I'm going to let you start with the first question. I apologize, I need to get my glasses out here. So what is one of the primary challenges from your perspective on providing safe, reliable energy to the Commonwealth for the immediate future, and what do you see the utility providers doing to address this challenge?
Well, Linda, thanks for the question, and thanks for allowing me to be here today. But and no pressure at all having the first response here today. But probably the biggest issue facing, at least in the rural area, for the cooperatives is material supply. That's really a difficult issue anymore. You know, our costs have gone up over 50% for a bulk of our products and materials. In addition, our lead times have gone out to extensive areas. And for the first time, we've always had at the commercial industrial level long lead times on transformers and other materials. But for the first time at the residential level, we're starting to experience that. So it's become very difficult to get our hands on products. And that's probably the biggest challenge, is to make sure we can still provide affordable, reliable power, but do it in a timely fashion. And we've been very fortunate to be very efficient in our process. And right now it's becoming a little bit more challenging just due to the material supply issues.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marty. Amy, I'm going to let you answer this one next. Again, what is one of the primary challenges from your perspective on providing safe, reliable energy to the Commonwealth in the immediate future, and what do you see the utility providers doing to address that?
Thank you, and I'm sort of peeking through the back of the podium here at Executive Director Bridwell, so appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you this morning. And this question is not rooted in affordability, so we're going to put a pin in affordability and come back to that. I know that is a topic we'll get to later this morning. But I would say the activity at the federal level is really creating, I'm going to say, challenges as well as opportunities for us here in the Commonwealth. And the Inflation Reduction Act has changed the calculus. That act creates or expands tax credits for low and no emitting technologies, including nuclear and renewable generating resources. So their cost profile will change relative to fossil fuel generators. And I think we have to expect that as we move forward, we're going to see more carbon-free and low-carbon generating resources dispatching at increasing rates in the market. And that will put a pressure on fossil fuel generators with respect to keeping their plants on and keeping their plants in the money. And all of that is critically important as we think about reliability. And this is not an issue for 2050 or even 2040. This is a near-term issue. And I think it is one that should encourage all of us to come together and start to have the conversations around what the energy transition in Kentucky can and should be. We know that it needs to be balanced. We believe that it needs to be measured, because that reliability and affordability are so critically important. The other piece of federal legislation that we're looking at very carefully is the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, the IIJA. I think it's also known as the bipartisan BIL. We are very fortunate here in the Commonwealth to have the Energy and Environment Cabinet. They have been so involved with this bill since last November. really looking to maximize the benefits and the opportunities for that bill for all of Kentucky. But that bill, among other things, will accelerate the electrification of transportation. And so as more Kentuckians move to electric vehicles, as more fleets convert, we know that there will be an impact on the electric grid. And as the one that manages and operates that electric grid, we are ever mindful of reliability. So the management of the grid, we think, will look a little different in the near term as well as in the longer term. That management can take the form of tariffed rates that will encourage charging, EV charging at off-peak times. It might even include the ability to leverage batteries for grid balancing. But those opportunities are there. And we at Duke Energy Kentucky have been very much involved in conversations and the lead that we've seen from the Energy and Environment Cabinet. But we need to know where that load is going to show up, that new load, so that we can, in fact, manage the grid. So I think Executive Director Bridwell, challenges, but also opportunities. And we really look forward to being a part of the solution.
Great, thank you. So, Kimbra?
Yes, hey, thank you for having me here. Very excited to be here. I guess I've got the role of the natural gas distribution here. So the issues are a little bit different when you think about the immediate future. And really what we're focused on is the same items that we have been focused on. Infrastructure replacement. We have aging infrastructure, and we're actively working to replace all the cast iron. Will be done this year, but the bare steel is still going to take quite some time. But we're actively replacing our infrastructure. We continue to work on our SMS, our safety management system, and that is identifying risks that are out there within our processes, within our system, and then systematically addressing those risks. So we continue doing that. But all of those things cost money, and so affordability is, Amy pinned it, but that's something that we have to deal with today. So as commodity prices go up and as we invest in our infrastructure, the rates to our customers are going up as well. So we're actively making sure that our customers have energy efficiency options that are available to them, and that we hook them up with any energy assistance programs that they may be qualified to take advantage of as well. And there is a lot of money out there right now through federal and through state, and we're just working actively to make sure that we hook up the providers of those funds with our customers that can benefit from them.
Great, thank you all. Okay, so with our second question, Amy, I'll let you take the lead on this one. So the war in Ukraine has created an energy demand crisis that highlights the global integration of energy. What policies can we adopt in the Commonwealth to minimize the type of impact that we've seen in the last 8 months? And are you seeing things in other states or at a federal level that Kentucky can either mimic or perhaps avoid?
Yeah, and I would certainly agree. The war in Ukraine has highlighted the commodity cost for fuel, but this is an issue that we at Duke Energy have been looking at for the last couple of years. We've seen this market volatility certainly last year, and if we step back for a moment and reflect on the national and international activity that we have seen, this issue is one that has been slowly developing, right? Think about 2019 when there were droughts out west, droughts that were, I think, complicated, if you will, by droughts in Europe. All of that decreased the production of hydropower. And then we had the shutdowns of 2020, and we saw small natural gas producers fail. Some of them failed, larger producers cut back. And we came out of the shutdown in 2021, and there was, I would say, a mismatch between the supply and the demand. The demand came back strong, but the supply wasn't keeping up with it. We need pipelines to transport that natural gas, and we've all heard about some of the siting challenges with interstate pipelines. We have seen increased transport of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, over to Europe. All of that was putting pressure on natural gas prices, and as we think about the last 2 years alone, natural gas commodity prices have doubled year over year. Now, electric generators are probably one of the largest users of natural gas, and historically, you would think that there would be a conversion to lower cost fuel during periods of high natural gas prices. But we all know that the coal industry is challenged as well. We heard a little bit about some of those statistics in the Commonwealth just yesterday, but we know there are more coal plant retirements. We are seeing as well just challenges with transporting coal, particularly by rail, that influenced by the tight labor markets. We are continuing to see coal being transported over to Europe and to Asia. Fuel for our customers is a line item on the bill. It is a charge that we pass through without any markup, and for our electric customers, that comes through our fuel adjustment clause, or FAC. And that is a clause that reflects the volatility that we have experienced, particularly over the last couple of years. Now, we know the PSC is looking at the tools that may be available to mitigate that volatility, and we look forward to participating in those conversations. Similar to what Kimbra just shared with all of you at Duke Energy Kentucky, we're working really hard to be sure that our customers are aware of the options that are out there for them to manage that monthly utility bill. Also to consume and conserve, use less of the products. And we're also working hard to connect those who are eligible with financial assistance. And we are doing what we can to be good stewards with respect to our own O&M costs, to be as efficient an operator as we can be, incorporating more technology that will help with cost mitigation. We do have, I think, some reason for optimism. There is some suggestion that the volatility will temper some once we get through this winter season, but do believe that this is an important issue for our customers, and we will continue to engage where we can to mitigate the impacts.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, Kimbra, what about you? What policies can we adopt in the Commonwealth to minimize the type of impact we've seen, and are you seeing things in other states that we could either mimic or perhaps avoid?
Yeah, a lot of what Amy said stands true for what I would say as well. When you look at the war in Ukraine, it's made it very aware how much natural gas is in a global market now. Looking at the LNG exports, we're very price sensitive to the availability of exports going out, and when the LNG tankers have not been available, the prices have fluctuated down. So it's very, very sensitive. What we need is more production. So any policies that encourage more production, any policies that encourage the investment in RNG. Kentucky's got a lot of capacity out there for RNG that just hasn't been tapped into. So any policies that would help encourage the investment and then the use of RNG. For example, as a natural gas utility, our commodity is a pass-through, and we are expected to purchase the lowest cost available for our system supply. So RNG really isn't an option for us today to help invest in that market because we can't purchase it for our system supply. So policies that might encourage that could be beneficial. And then the transportation, it's hard to build new pipelines right now. And so any policies that make that a more reasonable proposition today would also benefit us as we make more supply available because it comes down to supply and demand.
Thanks, Kimbra. Okay, Marty, just a reminder again, what policies can we adopt as the Commonwealth to minimize the type of impact we've seen over the last 8 months, and are you seeing things in other states or at a federal level that we could mimic or avoid?
Well, Linda, just for the group to understand, again, I work for a rural electric cooperative. We're typically a little smaller of a facility, so we partner together, and we've done so to form a company called Big Rivers. There's 3 owners. I see there's East Kentucky Power folks in here as well, and they have a similar, or really an identical business model too. And so we've noticed we're in a transition phase right now, at least on the Big River side of things. We used to be primarily coal. We've made a transition to more natural gas in our fuel portfolio, and like the others, we have a fuel adjustment clause, and we've seen obviously a pretty large escalation in that charge over the past few years, and that's obviously being passed on to our consumers. It's now about 24% of the overall bill, where at one time it was much less. So we get a lot of phone calls on that subject, as you can imagine. But I think maybe the secret is, and again, we're in a transition phase, but it's perhaps we got to make sure we don't move too quickly. And I think that's what we learn. I think try to learn from other states that have maybe made this portfolio mix too quick, and they don't have the resources up and running to maybe deal with the demand side. Obviously, we're going through a lot of growth right now in certain parts of this state. And so to make sure we have the generation and the resources to supply it is critical. So I think it's a good time for, obviously, from the regulatory level and the utilities to work together to make sure we have the right balance and the right speed. I think we all want to head in the right direction or the same direction. It's just a matter of how quickly do we get there. And so I think the secret really is to not do it at a pace that we can't build the infrastructure quick enough. And the last thing we want is any kind of curtailments or blackouts, and maybe learn what happened over the summer and try to avoid that situation here in Kentucky. We're very blessed with resources. I do believe in diversification, and I think that's the secret, is not to be leveraged and have all your eggs in one basket. And I think that applies also at the generation level.
Great, thank you, fantastic. Okay, so Kimbra, I'm going to throw this one to you first. So infrastructure, we've mentioned the infrastructure issues already, but we've touched on them. What opportunities are you seeing in the Commonwealth for energy infrastructure?
So I would go back to the RNG. First of all, we think there is a great opportunity there. We recently filed a tariff that outlined what are the gas quality standards and what are the interconnection standards that would be required for a producer to use our distribution system for the reclaimed natural gas. And so we think that that's a step in the right way. And then you heard a little bit earlier some of the work that we're doing around hydrogen. Brett spoke earlier from the NiSource perspective about the blending that we're doing right now with a 20% blend and mixing it with natural gas and looking at how is that impacting the infrastructure, how is it impacting the customer, the appliances. So we think that hydrogen gives us a big opportunity, and that's why we're excited to be working closely with the Energy Cabinet in trying to secure a hydrogen hub.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, so Marty, I'm going to let you jump in on this one. What opportunities are you seeing in the Commonwealth for infrastructure, energy infrastructure?
Well, I think that's like asking a kid what do they want in a toy store. It's unlimited right now. There's more opportunity than ever. I think we're in an evolution in the energy business. And the last thing you want to do is ask your electrical engineers what they want, because they want everything. But obviously we all have to live within our means. We have budgets. We have an obligation to our consumers. But without a doubt, I think there's a whole lot of advanced battery storage that's out there that could be useful. Obviously, the EV charging is going to change. I think Kentucky's poised very well for that. Us in South Carolina, you see a lot of development in that area, and I think you're going to see a lot of change over the next decade. So we're exploring that, and it's pretty typical in the cooperative world to partner, and we partner with our statewide, and we have a national association that we work with, and this is a subject that's on everybody's mind. And we're all talking about how do we navigate this? How do we bridge this gap? You got to look at your short-term planning, your long-term planning, and make sure you have the right infrastructure in place to serve some of this new technology. And it's not only, for example, at the EV charging level, it's not at the commercial level, it's also at the residential. How does that impact your transformer supply or upgrades needed? How can energy storage help with that and help somewhat bridge the gap? And no doubt it allows us to be a little bit more flexible at where we can locate these facilities on our system. So that's a lot of it. Not to mention, I think there's a lot of grid modernization funding that's out there that could be used, and we're exploring that at this moment to see how it could help with reliability and, again, bridge the gap or segue with some of the changes that are coming, I think, over the next decade.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Amy, What opportunities are you seeing in the Commonwealth for energy infrastructure?
I would agree with Marty. I think the opportunities are plentiful and they are there. It will take all of us coming together to collaborate and really advance Kentucky. I think there is an entirely new opportunity for an energy economy. It will look different than the energy economy of our past, but again, it is there. And if we reflect for a moment just on where we are in Kentucky and the incredible development that we have seen, so much development alone in respect of the EV industry and what we've had with Ford and SK Innovation and Ascend Elements and AESC, there's so much opportunity that we have. And, Marty touched upon reliability and resiliency. The IIJA enables investments there. So we will see more of that on the electric side. There is also an opportunity for research and development. And as we look at all of the new technologies that are being talked about, you heard some of that on the prior panel around hydrogen, around advanced nuclear, around SMRs. Kimbra's talked about RNG. All of these technologies are out there and they can become a reality, and we can create an energy economy around them. But we're going to need that research and development, because at the end of the day, we as the utility providers want to be sure that the service we're providing is in fact reliable. The smart grid, right? Marty talked a little bit about the grid as well, and we have that smart technology on much of our distribution system in northern Kentucky. And we are seeing with these increasingly extreme weather events that we're able to reroute the power, to avoid customer outages, to minimize customer outages. All of that will come. Again, I think the technology, the advancements that we will have. So we embrace, I think as the others on this panel do as well, a review of all of the above, right? So that we have that flexibility, we have that optionality, that we are able to address supply chain and other challenges that may be out there, again, so that we can move forward collectively. But I think the time is now, again, for all of us to sit down and think about that vision for the Commonwealth so that we can all achieve that.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so this is the wide open one. So Marty, I'm going to start with you on this one. Okay, the energy utility sector is in a period of great transition. I think everybody in the room agrees with that one. So from your perspective as a rural provider, what can we expect for this transition as it goes forward?
Well, I'm a little luckier than others on the stage. Since I am in a rural environment, technology moves a little slower. So I can watch the other folks to see what's happening and then slowly develop it in my service territory. And that gives me a little bit of an edge to see what works and what doesn't. Naturally, got to provide products and services that the consumer base wants. Again, there's an oversupply of opportunity. It's a matter of what opportunity fits in our geographic area. And I think a lot of the challenges, again, we have a shortage right now when it comes to material supply. And some of this is going to require a lot of upgrades at the residential and commercial level. And can we get that product to meet these demands? So we have to move at a proper pace. No doubt these subjects are in all the boardrooms right now. Any of your strategic planning is going to have these subject matters in it. And the biggest thing is, can we have the infrastructure that can handle where all this technology is going to go? Again, it's a good business to be in, because obviously for us to turn a profit, and obviously we're not for profit, but we got to make money to keep the doors open. There is an opportunity for more energy sales. So if you're in the energy business, that's what you want to do. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. It creates a lot of opportunity in the form of economic development. There's manufacturers that I think will move into this state, which means we sell more kilowatt hours. We got to have the supply and generation there to serve that. That helps other people, not just in the energy business, but that's jobs. And that helps at the residential level too. So again, I think it's a great time. It's very exciting. It's just a matter of, can we manage this change, and can we do it in an effective time period to make sure we don't forget our original mission. And again, that's affordable, reliable, electric power. And we want to keep the lights on. That's our utmost go. But we got to do it in a time and a phase where we can handle this transition. And I think it's, again, going to be a very exciting next several years.
Great. Thanks, Marty. Okay, Amy, I'm going to let you answer this one. So what can we expect as the transition continues in your perspective?
I think what we can potentially realize is great opportunity, right? And Marty touched on this a little bit, but just again, let's reflect on what we have here in Kentucky, right? You just heard from Seth Cutter. CVG in and around that area is clearly a logistics hub, an expanding logistics hub. And I think we have the opportunity to capitalize on that and continue to bring more development into the Commonwealth. Advanced manufacturing, again, around hydrogen, advanced nuclear, SMRs, EVs, all of that opportunity is there. I think we should expect to see natural gas pipelines. There is a demand for natural gas pipelines, and this is infrastructure that in the future can carry hydrogen, can carry renewable natural gas. We will see more distributed energy resources. We will see more technology. I think the introduction of technology is one that's really exciting. We can use that for cost mitigation, but we can also use that for grid management. And then, of course, we will use that for cyber. One thing that you can expect in a commitment from Duke Energy Kentucky is that we will always be focused on affordability and reliability. I think we greatly appreciate that the competitive utility rates that we have historically seen in the Commonwealth have allowed us to be where we are today. And so that affordability is critically important as we continue to focus, and I think very aggressively, on economic development and further growth. And that reliability also critically important for our customers, whether they're present day customers or those customers we hope to attract to the Commonwealth and certainly Northern Kentucky. So we will focus on reliability. And we are looking at all of this in a way that we understand the impact to our customers and the impact of utility rates to our customers. So like Kimbra, we will advocate for policies, for sound policies that allow us to have a balanced, thoughtful transition. I agree with Marty. We can't go too fast. We have time to think through that balanced transition, but we need to start the conversation, and we need to start that conversation today.
Thank you. Okay, Kimbra.
Yeah, not a lot to add there, but when I think of your question, it's a very complex question because we have such a diversity of stakeholders. And when I look at the stakeholders in Kentucky versus the stakeholders in some of the other states that NiSource operates, they're different. And so there's different opportunities that are going to appeal to different groups of our stakeholders. So I think in the near future, it's how do we address those needs? One of the things that we're looking at doing is filing a tariff that would allow customers to purchase RNG. And so there's a segment out there that are very interested in doing that right now. There's another segment that is looking to see, well, what technologies are going to come along that really make sense and make this more affordable. So I think you're going to see a lot of investment in new technology, and we've heard about that at this conference. But when it really comes down to it, I like what our governor keeps saying around a healthy energy mix, that we need stability, we need sustainability, but we also need a value proposition that our customers can embrace and feel like that they are getting what is a fair energy for a fair price, and it meets the needs for the foreseeable future.
Great. Thanks. Okay, well, folks, that was the end of our prepared questions. So we want to answer your questions. So what do you you have an opportunity to talk to your energy providers here and ask them what your dying questions are, what you'd like to know. So So our first question, is there a project that you can discuss that your company is working on that you're very excited about? So Amy, you want to start with that one?
Oh, happy to. And so we've talked a little bit about diversity of generation resources, and in northern Kentucky we are continuing to diversify, right? So we do have East Bend, our coal plant in Rabbit Hash, Kentucky. We also have a peaking plant, which is a dual fuel peaking plant, but increasing amounts of renewable generation. And so we are working with Amazon, our friends just right next door to CVG, and putting some solar renewable generation on their rooftop. So really excited about that, and we are also working, I think much more conversation again with the Energy and Environment Cabinet as we think about the electrification of transportation and what that will look like. So a lot of work there with the NEVI plan and making sure that we get that right with respect to building out our alternative fuel corridors, and then the secondary and tertiary steps there around the other routes that will be built out under that plan. But I just think a lot of great opportunity there as we think about the electrification of transportation.
So what about you, Kimbra? Is there a project you're working on?
I guess I would go back to the project that I've already mentioned and Brett mentioned as well. And we have what's called a safety town. It's a training facility in Pennsylvania that's like a little city. It's set up with little houses. I call them like little doll houses, but they're little houses, and they've got all kinds of appliances in them. And so we're introducing a blended hydrogen, natural gas blend, 80-20 mix to see what is the impact on our pipes, on the meters, on the furnaces, on the water heaters, and it's something that has been done internationally, but we haven't done it much in the United States. So we're using that as a real learning proposition for NiSource to help us understand if we were to do that on a larger scale, what would that really mean for us and for our customers. So I'm excited to watch that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kimbra. Okay, Marty, is there a project that you're excited about that you can talk about that your company's working on?
There's a few, and I won't bore everybody with all of them, but without a doubt, I guess the most exciting, and this is very early in the stages, and we're just exploring at this point, but is battery storage and how that can help us on the grid, how that can reduce some at certain locations on feeders, congestion on those feeders. Without a doubt, on the EV charging side, and this is where we're doing the most exploration, is how we can add that in to the charging stations. And I'll give an example. A lot of people don't realize the loads that EV charging uses. And for example, a typical port on a fast charging station is about 350 kW. And if you ever go to a gasoline station, there's multiple ports there. And so at the electric vehicle area, you got to be very cautious of where you put these charging stations due to the load. A lot of these are over a 1 megawatt load, and so they have to be in critical locations, whereas the energy storage can really help offset that and gives us a lot more flexibility. And so that's something we're exploring to see how it works, and it's just exciting right now. And as an example, yesterday I read an article, and it was on electric vehicle charging at the aviation level, and they're starting to explore this, and it's really going to make an impact on short distance travel from an aviation standpoint. So it's hard to know where everything's going in the future, but it sure is exciting right now to be in this business because the possibilities are somewhat endless.
Great. Thanks, Marty. Okay, so I think this next question is for you, Amy. Do you see a mix of hydrogen with natural gas in Duke's near future?
I don't know about in the near future, right? Certainly, above all, we will be a prudent, responsible operator. And I do think, as Kimbra highlighted, there is more research to be done to understand the impacts of introducing hydrogen into the natural gas system. But it is something that we are absolutely looking at because we do think that there is a place for hydrogen in the future, both on the natural gas and the electric side. But we want to be sure that when that introduction happens, that it is safe, and it is a prudent investment.
Okay, so our next question is, do you think we will get additional nuclear plants, most importantly in Kentucky? So I don't know if any of you would like to, Marty, would you like to take that one to start off?
I'll take a stab. Obviously, again, as a co-owner of Big Rivers, I attend a lot of the board meetings. I'm part of their strategic planning. And we just had a retreat, and this subject came up, actually, because we're going to have to add generation in the near future, part of just the phase we're in. And nuclear did come up. It's a matter of the costs. Can we do it at a cost we can afford? But I think right now, there's a lot of opportunity. It's worth exploring, and I think it could be a benefit if used in the right application. Again, we're not to a point to make a commitment, but at least it's coming up, and we're starting to think about it because there's a lot of interesting opportunities there.
Okay, great. Amy, what's your thoughts on this one?
I would say the potential is there, and not tomorrow, but longer term, that potential is there. I think we've got some research and development that needs to happen, particularly around SMRs, right? This is technology that is newer, and I think every utility in the Commonwealth will want to be sure, again, as they're introducing technologies, that they can do so prudently and safely. As I mentioned earlier, I think this cost structure is changing under the IRA. There's more work to be done to understand the true impacts of that federal act, including guidelines around implementation. But those credits, those tax credits, are changing the cost profile for nuclear. I do think there is, again, that potential, and we need to start thinking about how real that is in Kentucky, because we are not the only jurisdiction in which this transition is happening. It is happening across the country. And so we need to get in the queue as we think about the demand that there will be for SMRs going forward. Again, I think that potential is very much there. It will take, I think there was a comment on the prior panel about the community and the community's receptiveness to different forms of generation. So we need to start those conversations as well now.
Kimbra, do you want to add anything? I know
So kind of out of my lane, but I would be surprised if we did not have nuclear at some point. I think it's just a matter of when.
Okay, great. Okay, so Kimbra, I'll let you start with this next one then.
Okay.
What's the largest hurdle to incorporating energy storage?
I'm sorry.
What's the largest hurdles to incorporating energy storage?
So, when I think about energy storage, I mean, for the gas, it's a storage field, and, that exists. We currently do not have any storage in Columbia Gas of Kentucky. However, we do in other states. But then when I think of, that question, I go to battery storage, and, what does that really look like? And, again, I think it's investing in getting the right people to invest in making these technologies a reality. It's like any other technology. When you first start to invest, the dollars seem very huge, but it takes those investments to bring it down so that it becomes a technology that everybody can benefit from. And I think that there's just a whole lot happening in the energy space right now that is going to require those investments. And how quickly those investments happen is going to help dictate how quickly this whole energy transition evolves. Because I don't think that we have all the components that we need right now for it to be a successful transition.
Okay. So before I go to the other panel members, let me come back to that. So on the gas storage, the energy storage, is that something that Columbia Gas is looking at with basically the volatility that has occurred over the last few months, particularly, but the last year on the gas pricing?
Yeah, so we do contract for storage off the transmission line. We just don't have any physically off of our system. But no, we absolutely take advantage of storage that's out there to purchase when the prices are low, and to withdraw. It's very much part of meeting our peak needs and our seasonal needs for natural gas, and try to manage the pricing. This year was very unusual because we never saw the pricing really go down in the summertime, which is normally when you fill up the storage fields. So it's that, again, it being a global market these days has definitely made a big difference in the commodity pricing that we're facing right now.
Okay, great. Okay, so Amy, let me then come to you. What are the largest hurdles in incorporating energy storage and the best ways to overcome them?
Yeah, I would certainly concur with that, which Kimbra has just shared. You know, on the gas side, you know, we don't have storage on our system. We would contract for that. And although I think that the amount of storage today across the country is at probably a level that is lower than the historic 5-year average, I think we feel good that the reserves, the storage is there. We continue to actively manage so that we can, again, have the lowest cost possible for our natural gas customers. You know, on the electric side, what we're talking about now are so many new technologies, things we're just not familiar with, that we don't have the expertise with. So I think some of the challenge comes from just the level of acceptance across the board for those in the industry as well as our customers, but a level of acceptance for technologies that maybe don't have the track record that we're more comfortable with. So I think there's an education process. I think with battery storage, again, that technology continues to improve. But when you think about the larger scale storage, is 4 hours enough? Maybe not, when coupled with other intermittent resources. So I think continuing to advance that technology, understand that technology. I would have said before the IRA that certainly the cost profile of battery storage was a technology, but I think now we will see what changes might there be in terms of the economics relative to battery storage going forward.
Great. Okay, Marty. So I know you mentioned storage just a minute ago. So what hurdles are you seeing to energy storage?
Well, I'm going to echo some of Amy's comments, but without a doubt, the two biggest would be reliability. It's an emerging technology, and how efficient is it, and will it hold up? Second is cost. And so in certain applications, for example, if we have a temporary load, it could be you have to upgrade a substation. Could it be more affordable to use battery technology to handle that congestion during a peak period, especially if it's a temporary situation? But the cost, the reliability just aren't there yet. As far as we just don't know enough. We're learning, but I think it's very exciting because it can give opportunities that we didn't have previously. So that's where some of the excitement is, I think, from an engineering perspective and operation standpoint.
Okay, great. Okay, folks, what other questions do you have? If not, I've always got questions for these folks. So while we're waiting, if the audience has some questions, let's go back to the affordability piece, because I mean, the one thing we all have in common in this room is we all are paying an energy bill, and they've been going up. So let me just start, Kimbra, with you on what is Columbia Gas doing as far as trying to manage the affordability piece as we transition as well.
So we're encouraging our customers to make their homes as energy efficient as possible. We're also working closely with the agencies that do have the dollars available to help out with the bills. We also offer things like the budget payment program, where they can pay this approximately the same amount every single month with a true-up that happens once a year. And so that helps even out what they expect to pay for their energy bills on a monthly basis, so that they don't see the peaks and valleys, and it makes it easier for them to manage their finances. But you know, doing a lot of outreach to try to help our customers that are in the most need.
So Amy, what are you seeing that Duke is doing as part of the affordability component of energy transition?
Sure, and I'll talk about the programs that we have that directly impact our customers, and then some on the operations side as well. So like Columbia, we at Duke Energy have a budget billing program. So we are making sure that all of our customers are educated on the availability of that program. It allows you to really pick more equal installments month over month to avoid that volatility that you might see between seasons. We also have other programs like a usage alert. So you can set a threshold on your monthly consumption, and as you start to trend up toward that threshold, we will let you know. so that you can make the changes you feel appropriate in that particular point in time. We also have an opportunity for our customers to shift when their payment will actually be due so that they can better align that with their own financial situation. And those are programs that we had even before the volatility in the markets. I think especially over the last couple of years, we have been very intentional in expanding our outreach so that our customers understand how they can use less of the product. So it's not just our energy efficiency programs through the commission, but how can we help educate customers on that energy conservation to make their homes more energy efficient. Also reaching out through our community partners, through nonprofits and others on educating as to those forms of financial assistance that are available for our qualifying customers. And again, operationally, we are really working hard to maintain that which we can control, and that's our O&M cost, right? So incorporating more technology, again, that will drive out some of that cost, but being very prudent with respect to the operation of our own businesses, really to reflect that which we can. And I think as well, right, looking forward to these conversations and the work from the PSC about how can you take a particular line item on a customer's bill and mitigate that volatility month over month. So certainly looking at and welcome the exploration of those options as well.
Okay, so Marty, let me turn it to you. So on the affordability piece, what are you seeing both at your REC and across your fellow RECCs on managing affordability through this transition?
Well, all the cooperatives, just like every electric utility in the state, has a lot of programs and financial assistance to help their members, which is their end consumer. I'd say right now, more than ever, homeowners and businesses have more control than they've ever had due to advanced metering technology. They have information at real time that lets them know what they're using, what they can do to offset. For years, we've been preaching energy efficiency. You know, we give away tons of information. We're kind of well known for giving away buckets and bulbs. That's kind of a tradition in the cooperative world to help people use more energy-wise products and services. And we've already seen it on our system. Usage has gone down, and it's not that rates have gone up. It's the fuel cost has gone up. That's what's driving this right now, and it's forcing this to be a topic. I hope in the next 24 months we'll see somewhat of a flat line. I think we all know we went through the COVID phase. That kind of coming out of that really drove a lot of production. It's increased a lot of activity, which has increased demand. So I think you're seeing some of that, but I think over time you're going to see that plateau a little bit, and you know, we all have to be prudent with our investments to kind of keep costs down. But I think we've done that. I think you'll continue to see that. It's just a matter of the fuel costs. Can we get a handle of that to kind of flatline that a little bit more than where it has been? But consumers are in a good place. They have a lot of control now. They're going to continue to have that. And they can go to our websites, call our team members. We're always there to help. We always have been and will continue to be.
Great. Thank you. So I think we had another question come up. Yes. So are there any environmental impact concerns with building distribution lines for new energy needs or decommissioning the existing lines? So Amy, are you interested in taking that one first? And then
happy to lead with that. And so as I think about distribution lines and the distribution infrastructure, oftentimes we will replace those distribution lines on existing poles. And so I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of environmental impact in some elements. I will say, as we think about the environment, vegetation management is critically important to reliable service, and it is one that can be incredibly sensitive. You know, driving down from northern Kentucky this morning, right, a lot of trees in the Commonwealth, and I know we all have a lot of passion for our trees, and so we are certainly sensitive to the maintenance of our transmission and distribution lines when it comes to tree trimming, and partner with our communities so that we do so in a thoughtful, measured way, but also that we educate on planting the right vegetation, planting the right trees around our power lines. So I think this is one that will, as we think about expanding or enlarging distribution and transmission overhead lines, it will require, I think, some conversations and some partnerships with our communities so that we are able to strike that appropriate balance between grid reliability as well as just the aesthetics of our natural beauty.
Well, we'll stick with the electric side. So, Marty, are there any environmental impact concerns that you're seeing from building distribution lines for new energy needs?
That's a two-sided question. So, for example, as we land new loads, sometimes you're in a time crunch to try to build the lines, and so that's when the environmental concerns can impact the utility and the end-use consumer. Obviously, they're not getting the line built quick enough, depending on what time of year it is, so it can slow the process down. On the flip side, we all want to have a healthy environment, and we want to be careful at what we do. So as vegetation management was mentioned, that's a cost that continues to rise. That's something we try to watch. It's a labor issue. A lot of people don't want to be in that business any longer. It's difficult to get the help, so it's driving the cost upward. But we try to do that in a very appropriate manner. Again, nobody wants us coming in their backyard and trimming their trees, but on the other hand, we do have a right to reliable service. So we try to manage that very delicately. That's probably the number one complaint we get, or the phone calls that come in. It's usually regarding vegetation management and the clearing of distribution right away. So I think that always has been an issue and will continue to be. It's just a very sensitive and personal subject. When your daughter plants a tree and it grows up over 20 years into our lines, from a safety standpoint, we don't have a choice. We have to trim that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't bring a little heartache.
Okay. So we'll turn it, Kimbra. We'll give this one to you, because I think that you probably have a bigger, but what are the environmental impact concerns with building distribution lines and decommissioning other ones?
So I don't think that the environmental concerns have changed. I mean, obviously, when we're installing new distribution line, it's underground. We're not hanging gas lines from trees, so it is underground, and there's always the unknown of what is underneath that ground. So we make sure that we do all of the exploration ahead of time to understand what could possibly be underground. And then we also, changes that have been made in technology through the years, we camera. So if we bore a line, then we put a camera through there to make sure that we do see exactly what did we encounter as we were boring that line in. So I don't think that there's been a lot of publicity around people concerned about the environmental issues, but we've always been really good stewards of the environment and made sure that we have done all of our construction practices in a very responsible way, and that hasn't changed and won't change.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kimbra. Okay, so it looks like we may have another question. Let me see. Okay, so Kimbra, this one is for you. Is Columbia doing anything to reduce methane emissions from natural gas infrastructure?
Yes, so when we talk about the infrastructure replacement program that I mentioned earlier, that is really about updating our infrastructure, and we're replacing bare steel and cast iron that is known to be leaky with plastic that is that isn't going to leak. So you think about methane emissions, and there are leaks in the system that are out there, especially in the rural areas where people aren't detecting it because they're not smelling it, because there's nobody that is out in those fields where some of these gas lines are. But as we modernize our infrastructure, we are eliminating leaks, and eliminating leaks equates to eliminating methane. So don't really think about that a lot, but that is a reality of the natural gas industry. And so as we modernize that infrastructure, we are reducing the methane that's going into the environment.
Okay. Amy, I know Duke also has some gas operations. So is there anything that Duke is doing to reduce the methane emissions?
Sure, absolutely. Happy to respond to that. And we previously in Duke Energy Kentucky had replaced all of our cast iron and bare steel. Those were technologies, while suitable at the time they were installed, just showed a propensity for corrosion and then failure. So we are through that process now, but also looking at our existing natural gas infrastructure. It is of different ages, installed at different times, and so looking to upgrade some of the existing technologies, again, with the materials of today. And like Columbia, we have leak detection programs. So we are out on a very regular basis so that every aspect of the natural gas system is inspected. But as we think about technology and the advancements in technology, right, the leak detection equipment today, I think we will see an introduction of more sophisticated leak detection equipment. And so our affiliate Piedmont Natural Gas is testing now with the use of drones. Can we get even more granular with respect to inspecting the system and looking for those leaks that would not otherwise appear on what is the customary technology of the industry? And what that does is it allows us to more methodically, routinely eliminate those leaks on the system. But I think that's just really exciting when we think about taking drones and the technology that they will enable to identify leaks at a more earlier time. So certainly those are things that we continue to do. And then longer term, again, I think this focus on the potential for renewable natural gas, the potential for hydrogen to become part of that delivery system.
Well, that pulls right into our next question. So Amy, if you want to, so can you comment on the hydrogen supply, and where would the hydrogen used in Kentucky possibly come from?
Oh my gosh, so great question. And this is one where I know Kimbra had talked about, the hydrogen hub. Are there potentials for some R&D and hydrogen hubs, again, occasioned by that federal infrastructure bill? So I don't know exactly where it might come from, but we are looking for that and looking around those opportunities as well. And it could be hydrogen as a fuel source for transportation, for like a vehicle charging, if you will. But really exciting to see the opportunities that might be out there enabled again by that federal bill.
Okay, great. Marty, do you want to add anything on the hydrogen component?
I'm afraid I don't have anything to add on that subject. I know it's been talked about a little bit, but it's a little too emerging for me to know much about.
Okay. Kimbra, is there anything on the hydrogen you'd like to add?
So I can just share that we do have customers that are already producing hydrogen and using it in their process. So it is here in Kentucky, people are doing it. And I just think that market's going to continue to grow.
Great. Okay. So, Kimbra, let's come back to you. So what are your thoughts on gas cavern storage? But this is also for hydrogen, CO2, CH4, water, and the competition for caverns. We have a lot of them in Kentucky, so...
I'm afraid I don't know much about cavern storage. It's not an area that I feel that I have a lot to add.
Okay. Amy,
I would say we're getting out of cavern storage. So we had, and these were caverns that were man-made probably in the 1960s, so a long time ago, just mined out of the limestone that we have in the greater Cincinnati region, and we use those caverns to store propane. So propane was actually a fuel that we used to supplement our natural gas delivery season on the coldest of winter days, when we needed to make sure that the pressures were there so that the supplies would continue. Propane is a fuel that has a much different set of characteristics than natural gas. And so we have been able, through the construction of new natural gas distribution pipelines, we have been able to retire those propane facilities and really get away from using that fuel. I think that the storage opportunities can be there. I think some storage may take a lot of land that will be required. Certainly the storage caverns that we had, again, man-made limestone, not storage caverns that you can just go in and fix. or repair. So I think we'd have to look through, what is the right method or mode of storage, and can we do that safely and efficiently and economically for customers?
Marty, did you want to?
I wish I could add to that. I'm not in the natural gas business or propane, so I don't know if I can help too much there, but thanks anyway.
Okay. Let's see if we have some other questions here. And it looks like those are the ones that we've had added on the app, but feel free to continue to add. We've got just a few more minutes. If anybody's got something that they're not feeling comfortable putting it on the app, but they would like to address, we have a couple microphones working the room. So if anybody is interested in asking a question, here's your chance, folks. Okay. I'm looking at the secretary.
Thank you, Larry. We in the Energy and Environment Cabinet have a lot of opportunity to interact with your commercial and industrial customers for a variety of reasons. But one of the hot topics these days is what they can do to reduce their carbon footprint. I do understand the reluctance in the regulated utility world to move forward too quickly because of your public service responsibility. But what tools do you all have in your toolbox to address the needs that those commercial and industrial customers need right now for to meet their customers' demands? Anybody?
Well, I would say that the toolbox needs to be expanded, but we do have some tariff offerings available for customers. A lot of it at the moment really is around some partnerships with renewable energy credits. Again, continuing, at least with Duke Energy Kentucky, in a very measured way to introduce more renewable generation onto our system. I think there's just a lot of, there's more conversation that needs to happen there with customers, and I think a further exploration around meeting their needs, because just like us, right, that reliable service is so critically important for our commercial and industrial customers. So we want to be sure that we can meet their needs there, but understand the pressures, the demands that they're having from their customer segments and others. So looking forward again to some, resources that we can advance through our regulators that will allow us to better partner and advance the needs of our customers.
So Marty, would you like to?
I'll take a
add
stab.
to that?
Obviously, there's a limit to what we can do, and no doubt any manufacturing facility has limits to their load. But I think anything we can do to decrease their footprint on the energy use that they have reduces their carbon footprint as well. So we do provide programs and services in the form of energy audits to help them be the most efficient they can be. At times, we try to partner by diversifying our fuel portfolio through Big Rivers so that at least the energy that they consume, those electrons come from a more renewable source. So that's about all the tools we have in our toolbox at this point. But there's a limit, but there's always room for improvement.
Kimbra, would you like to answer that one too?
Yeah, one of the things that we're looking at filing and putting as a tool in our toolbox is a renewable natural gas tariff filing, which would give them access to those credits that they can take advantage of. But I think, what we're probably offering today that's the most valuable is just information. We do have folks that work closely with those customers and introducing them to technologies or the folks that hold the technologies that can help them. So we do provide a consulting type service that our customers have found benefit in. And so, whether it's information on what's available out there or information on their load so that they can better manage it is really what we're actively doing at this time.
Thank you. We had another question come in. So RNG has been mentioned multiple times. Is that already incorporated into the gas supply here in Kentucky, and where is it, or will it come from? And I'm going to turn Kimbra. I know you've mentioned it a couple times.
So it can come from a lot of different places. There is not, we do not have any interconnects directly on our system today. However, we would encourage producers of RNG that we are very happy to work with them to get that introduced into our system. But it can come from farming. It could come from the bourbon industry. I mean, the mash that they produce, that's the waste product, you could actually create energy out of that. So there's lots of opportunities to create it. The problem right now is the cost profile. What does it take, and what does that equate to in a dollars per MMBTU or per MCF or whatever measurement you want to use? And it's cost prohibitive right now. So we need incentives. Do we have any in our system supply today? No, we don't, because we are obligated to purchase the lowest cost fuel, the lowest cost natural gas to deliver to our customers, because it's been said a couple times here, it's a pass-through to our customers. So we secure the lowest price. RNG is not the lowest price today. But as the field keeps growing and as the technology improves, that price is going to come down to where in the future I think it will be part of the supply that we purchase and redeliver to our customers.
We had a great question here, and I apologize to whoever asked this question about what are tariffs, and it's been mentioned several times. And from the utility standpoint, the tariff is the rate that you pay. That is a great question. Yeah. So we interchange that with rates and tariffs, or just the amount, the cost for the energy that you're paying. So I appreciate that. So I think we had a question over here.
Yes, this also relates to the renewable natural gas. So are there any estimates as to how much renewable natural gas might come in the Commonwealth? We only have so much landfill gas, so many landfills, so many sewer systems, so many manure processing, anaerobic digesters, et cetera. Do we have any idea, would it fill 5% or 10% of our needs, or more or less? Thanks.
Can I phone a friend? Do I still have Brett back here? I think he has that answer.
So this is not production that's in place today. They're given the resources that
And they're bringing you a
yeah. They want
speaker.
you to have a mic today.
I thought this question might get asked. So this is not based on resources available today, but based off of the profile of farms, landfills, other potential sources of RNG. Let's see. Kentucky has an estimated 150 BCF per year of potential RNG supply, according to a study by the American Gas Foundation. That compares to total demand in the Commonwealth of 275 BCF per year currently. So there's the potential, if we could get the cost down, for about 50% of the current supply to be in the form of RNG. There's a lot of ifs that go into that, but that's the potential from the sources that we have in the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
That's impressive. So 50%. Okay. Okay. So any other questions from the room? We've got another one that's popped up on the screen. So Marty, I'm going to start with you on this one. What steps do you recommend for making a household more energy efficient?
Well, obviously, HVAC is one of your biggest users in your home, so the better the SEER rating, the better efficient you're going to be. But hot water heaters, HVAC systems, obviously tightening up the home through better insulation, use more lighting, natural lighting than household lighting. And I think most of us have exhausted that approach, and you've seen wattages drop over the years. And again, we've seen usage drop. Our average homeowner's using under 1,000 kilowatt hours a month on average. Not that long ago, it was about 1,200 kilowatt hours a month. So I do think the training that we've been providing for years has paid off, and people are very efficient. What's happening now that I'm seeing is homes are slowly expanding. The term man or woman cave is starting to develop to where people have 3 and 4 refrigerators in their house. TVs in every room, every kitchen, every bathroom. And so we've become more efficient, but people just continue to use more. And so we're starting to see that slowly start climbing back up. And so obviously we don't have to leave everything on all the time. And I think this would be a better question or answer for me to provide to my kids. They never turn anything off. I'm on them all the time. So maybe we need a nanny to try to keep our kids in check. And I think that's maybe the answer. So
I've already warned my daughter that she better be ready to wear a blanket all winter. So, Amy, what would you recommend to make a household more energy efficient?
Yeah, so I think Marty touched on a lot of those, right? And this is the season where we can talk about energy vampires, right? Unplug those items that you're not using. But through our website as well as our outreach, right? Some of those other reminders, right? On those sunny days in the winter time, let the sun warm your house a bit, but be sure to close those drapes when the sun goes down. The direction of the ceiling fan matters, right? So I think it's counterclockwise in the winter time, clockwise in the summertime. That does matter. Seal the cracks, right? That is one of the easiest things that we can all do with weather stripping and with caulk, to seal the cracks. And Marty had talked about some of the bigger items, right, with respect to the larger appliances in the home as well as the light bulbs in the home. Adjusting the thermostat, again, consistent with your comfort level, or if there are any other needs of family members in your home, but even just a few additional degrees on the thermostat can make a difference.
So, Kimbra, would you like to add?
Yeah, not a lot to add there. I would say, the programmable thermostat. Purchase one, but don't just purchase it, use it. There's a lot of people that have programmable thermostats, but they don't ever touch it. So use it. Keep the door shut. When you let the dogs out, don't leave the door wide open. It's amazing how quickly the hot or cold air gets sucked out. It's those little tidbits that we're always encouraging our customers, and you hear them all over the place. But if people really take those to heart and act on them, it will make a difference in your energy bills.
And if I could just add, right, so under this federal infrastructure bill, there was significant funding that was added to community action agencies for energy efficiency programs for qualifying individuals. And so if you have friends or family who might qualify for that, it is really a comprehensive program where energy audits are done and significant improvements to a home can be made with new furnaces and water heaters and different fans and insulation and caulking. So again, the opportunity is there through this federal bill, and I want to say it was maybe $3 billion of additional money across the country, but additional money in the local community action agencies that they can leverage, and we can in turn help support our neighbors and those in need.
Great. Well, folks, I want to thank you all for your questions, and I want to thank our panelists for a great conversation this morning. So if you will help me.